Welcome back to another episode of the Stevens, and guess what? We back at it again. Back to back new episodes. I'm very proud of myself. I did it. Thank you to me, Marcus Wayne Stevens, or Marcus Wayne FatmanStephens, if you fancy. Well, everybody, I came in here and I don't really know what I want to talk about until I got to work today, and I wanted to discuss one thing because I happened to see that today, the day I was recording, was the Capcom showcase for I guess, well, we're not calling it E3 because E3 was canceled this year again. So we're just calling it for the June game festival because it seems like the last week a lot of gaming announcements have come out since the PlayStation exhibit. And I want to talk about specifically one game in particular and then talk about another game and maybe just talk about this whole topic as a whole episode about gaming. So, March 24th, 2023, it was announced a few weeks ago that Resident Evil 4 will be receiving a full remake for the next gen consoles. I think is it just coming out on PS5 and Xbox Series X? I don't remember if that was the case. I have to check my facts real quick. But it is coming out next year, Resident Evil 4 remake, and ever since they started doing, they remade Resident Evil 2, and then people were like, oh, well, do 3, and then they were like, hold on. They said, "Oh, let's remake 3," and they remade 3. And people were like, "Well, you guys could have kept 3. We really didn't like that." I enjoyed Resident Evil 3. Um, I don't know what everybody else thought, but I thought it was really good. I think it's coming to all consoles as well, right? Let me see. Resident Evil 4. Whatever. It's coming to PS. It's coming to PS5, and I'm very excited. Well, actually, excuse me. Before I say that, I don't want to lie. I'm indifferent. I am of the camp. I am one of those people who believe that, and we can have a argument about this, a disagreement, a discussion, anywhere on the socials. But I feel like Resident Evil 4 is probably the greatest video game created in the 2000s. Okay, now I understand The Sims came out, there was Halo came out, Super Smash Bros. Melee, the chat games, well, they're not really probably the list. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and 4 came out in this time period. Bioshock, Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. I understand there are so many amazing games in the 2000s, even in the 2010s, but the 2000s for me, because that's when I was really growing up. I can't really think of a game as revolutionary. I think there's 3 games that come to mind, or 4 games that come to mind when I think of like groundbreaking and revolutionizing gaming. Right? Of course, Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Resident Evil 4, and Grand Theft Auto 3. And I throw Fortnite in there because there's so many damn battle world games nowadays. But Resident Evil 4 was the first Resident Evil game I played when it came out in 2005. Didn't know too much about it. I saw it was getting perfect scores all around, so I decided to give it a go and instantly fell in love with it. Beat it the same weekend it came out. Again, this is my first foray into a full Resident Evil game. Of course, I played like Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 growing up, but I never really owned them or beat them, and they were way too complex. But I say that even though even though I played through Dino Crisis as a kid, so I guess maybe just zombies weren't my forte just yet. But Resident Evil 4 for me was the first game of Resident Evil that I played, start to finish. Really enjoyed it. Picked it up again and replayed it. I just think it was a really well done game, and it basically set the stage for third person cover based shooters for years to come. Do you think Gears of War would have came along if it wasn't for Resident Evil 4? Paving the way. What about Quantum Theory? Y'all remember Quantum Theory? Nobody remembers that game. But without Quantum Theory, without Resident Evil 4, there's no Quantum Theory. Well, actually, without Gears of War, there's no Quantum Theory. But without Resident Evil 4, there's no Gears of War. I'm saying a lot of things right now. So Resident Evil 4 getting the remake treatment. If it comes out next year, if it's sometime under the 24th, it's 18 years after the original release in January 2005. Again, here's my thing about Capcom. I believe they are remaking all the Resident Evil games so they can get up to Resident Evil 6 and remake it and make it a good game that everybody will like. That's my whole conspiracy theory about this. I And I hope they find a sweet spot between Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. I know everybody critically love Resident Evil 2 remake. I don't think there's a lot of people who say bad things about it, but there are a lot of people who talk bad things about the Resident Evil 3 remake. And I get it. The Resident Evil, if I can beat the Resident Evil 3 remake, but I couldn't beat the 2 remake, there's a problem. And I say that because, well, also it was the pandemic, so I was in the house stuck anyway. But the Resident Evil 3 remake was super short. Like to be able to beat the game 3 times in one sitting, which I did one time, is crazy to think about. But that's what I did. Just speed running it, or after New Game Plus and all that. But I hope they find the sweet spot, because I want them to include everything from Resident Evil 4. Like, you have to include every single thing for it to be a remake. I know in Resident Evil 3 remake, they really just cut a lot of things out, and a lot of people think it was a cash grab. But I feel like since it's been 3 years now, it'll be 3 years between the release of the 3 remake and the 4 remake. I feel like they're going to take their time with it, and that's always the tough when you're touching perfection. And I really do think Resident Evil 4 is perfect. Perfect in the term about how far of a game can really be perfect. I just think it's one of the best games ever made. Not in the 2000s, but I put that up against Legends of the Ocarina of Time, standing on its own, Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption. Like, these are some of the greatest games I've ever made. I put it up there. It's gotta be in the top 5 games. So because of that, I am tepid. I am nervous because, again, not only are you messing with a game that's so revered, you're also messing with a game from my childhood. And is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? I'm going to play it. I've already set it up. I'm buying that day one. Again, Resident Evil 4, my favorite Resident Evil. But if this is all building up to remake Resident Evil 5 and 6, I guess they kind of have to now, right? Yeah, they pretty much have to. And they'll probably do remake Resident Evil 7 just with the third person, because I don't know if also we've was announced at the Capcom showcase that Resident Evil 8's getting a mode where you can play as, from behind the back. You can play, you can play at a third person view, which I'm very intrigued in. That could change the whole game. I would definitely like to play it. I definitely would play the game through again as the third person. And they're also doing a story about Rose, a DLC about Rose, so I'm sure that will tie into Resident Evil 9 eventually whenever it comes out, in 2025 or whatever it is. But yeah, I definitely know I'm going to get it the first day. Now, speaking of remakes, let's stay on the topic of remakes, because I think Resident Evil 4, it wasn't a needed remake, but I understand why you remake it. Obviously, Resident Evil 4 has been on every console imaginable. GameCube, it's been on PS2, it's been on mobiles, it's been on the Wii, Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PC, and now it's coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X. So I guess that's in the remake version. So I don't know. I'm gonna get it. I'm just nervous because it is such a perfect game. But talking about remakes, let's talk about another remake that was announced. They announced a remake of The Last of Us for PlayStation 5, and it's coming out in 3 months, September 3rd. They just announced it at the Summer Expo last Thursday or whatever it was, and it's coming pretty quick. Okay, I have a lot of opinions about this. One, it's not needed. The Last of Us from 2013, it was only 9 years ago, still looks really good to this day. Number two, they're charging $70. $70 for this remake. And it doesn't look like there's any upgrades or if you own The Last of Us remastered or anything from PS4, if you're getting any type of upgrade like they did with the Uncharted games. Earlier this year, it was Uncharted 4 and Uncharted The Lost Legacy. They didn't do anything like that. So you're charging $70 for a 9-year-old game. You're not changing too much. You're obviously it looks better. It looks like The Last of Us Part 2, and they changed the title of The Last of Us Part 1, right? So I don't know. I just feel like it's not a needed remake. I'm going to play it. I'm not going to spend $70 on it. I will play The Last of Us again because I never played the Left Behind DLC, and I haven't played Last of Us Part 1 in 9 years. You know what? If they would just said, hey, we're remaking Last of Us Part 1, but we're also getting Last of Us Part 2 in the same disc or the same package for $70. I would understand that. But because for the PS5 upgrade for Last of Us Part 2, and then you're getting the multiplayer mode, I'd be okay with that. But no. They're not doing it like that. So I don't understand. I don't understand the case. Let me just text this. I'm sorry. I just don't understand it at all. I just I don't get it. I'm again gonna play it. I heard the rumors were that they wanted to have Naughty Dog do. They wanted Naughty Dog to have experience of working on the PS5, and none of Naughty Dog's other projects, probably Last of Us Part 4. Last of Us Part 3, and I don't know if they're doing another Uncharted game. I think it's time for Naughty Dog to get another series. Honestly, I don't know what else they can do. They've already done a Tomb Raider series. They've already done an apocalyptic. Maybe something futuristic would be nice from them. Something like Horizon or something, or something along those natures, like a leveling up RPG, action RPG type of thing. But none of those projects were ready just yet, so they said, "Hey, let's put out Last of Us. Let's remake that from start to finish and put it out for $70." And it also makes sense because obviously the Last of Us TV series is just finished filming, so I'm sure we'll be getting around the time the game comes out, we'll probably get an announcement date for the show. Debuting on HBO, so it kind of just ties together. I get it from a marketing perspective, because when people talk about the Last of Us series, you're gonna be like, oh well, the series looks good, but how do I play the game? They don't want you to buy the remastered version on PS4 from a PS3 game. They say, well, here you go. Here is this sparkly new game for PlayStation 5. That if you're not an immediate gamer, if you're not an immediate person who knows about The Last of Us, you're gonna be like, oh, this was made for this system. Because it's going to look like it was made for this system, right? It's going to have mechanics that are fit today's era of gaming and not in 2013. So I get why they did it. I'm just not happy about it. I'm also not happy about spending $70 for it. If they said 40 or 50, fine. 60, 70 is too much. And of course, people are going to play it regardless, but I think it's still too much. And I get it. I get it. So that's what we're talking about today. When is remaking a game or remaking anything in media, movie, television show, not needed or not important or not, necessary? Obviously, anytime you talk about remakes, why touch the original? I know a lot of people don't like remakes and reboots, and everybody's saying Hollywood and gaming are lazy. Nobody has any original ideas anymore. Blah 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 blah. But then the people who say that don't even try the new original games or watch the original movies or TV shows that come out. So I don't understand that point of view when you complain, but you don't contribute. So how about you just shut up? I'm a fan of remakes. I'm a fan of reboots. I feel like everything can, come back for a new generation, especially if it's old. I'm thinking about a movie like Candyman that came out last year that's like 30 years old from the first one. I think that was a necessary remake, even though it wasn't that good. Or a lot of people didn't think it was good. I just wanted it to be more gory. I'm a gore fan, so. But I also look at something like the movie Halloween, where Halloween was rebooted perfectly, or I guess it's more of a sequel, right? Continuation to the first one than a reboot, but you know what I mean. But gaming, what do we need remaking these games for? It seems like this generation, the last 5 or 10 years, we've always been getting all these remasters, these remakes, these reboots, and it's never series that really deserve it or need it. Again, Resident Evil 2 remake, everybody applauded it. I feel like because Resident Evil 2 is on the PlayStation era, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 probably need a remake because they don't look as well today. When Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 are immediately available on PS5 and PS4 and Xbox Series X and Xbox One, you really don't need it to remake them. But I see why they're doing that as well. Even that. A Last of Us remake, while making sense from a marketability sensibility, it makes sense. But when you talk about it from a fan's point of view, it's probably dumb. If I'm remaking some series, here's some remakes I would do. Number 1, Streets of Rage. Because I am a Streets of Rage fan, because I'm a Sega fan, because I'm a Sega Genesis fan, Streets of Rage not getting a remake or nothing being done in a while is criminal. Granted, Streets of Rage 4, hell of a game. Hell of a game. One of the best games from 2020 that I played during the pandemic, and I absolutely adore it. I love beat 'em up, so I'm glad it got the treatment it deserved in a retro-esque remake or retro-esque sequel that was like what 27 years in the making. The last one came out in '93. Like I'm all for that. But if they want to reboot it, they should. And I know not everybody likes the gritty reboots. You know, during the 2000s, they rebooted everything, made it super gritty. I'm thinking about Final Fight Streetwise, where they rebooted it to be this dark, edgy game, and it didn't work out. Loved the game, but it did not work out. So, what could they do for Streets of Rage? This is what I would do with Streets of Rage. You have this series called Yakuza, right? And Yakuza 1 or 0 through 6 were all these great beat 'em up action RPG games, and they were adored worldwide. But then the studio says, hey, Yakuza now will be our turn-based RPG series. So, Like a Dragon, fantastic game as well, now is the RPG series. While Judgment is going to be the action RPG series. Why not just put Streets of Rage in the Yakuza formula, the action RPG aspect? Isn't that what Yakuza really is? Isn't that what Shenmue was? That's like Yakuza is basically a baby of Shenmue and Streets of Rage. So just take one of those babies away and make it its own thing. Which is, well, they're the parents. You know what I mean. Just take the parent away and put it to the side. A Streets of Rage 3D game with the Yakuza engine would be fantastic. Having a deep story with a criminal underground is basically the same thing Yakuza is now. Man, if Yakuza rebooted Streets of Rage with, oh my god, I would literally. So I'm all for that. I hope they do it. They're not going to. Nobody's going to hear this. If anything, we'll get Streets of Rage 5 in the same way. But I also heard that Capcom was doing a Final Fight reboot. From that leak that came out a while ago, and so far I think the leak has been it's been okay, but that's another thing they need to do. There's so many Capcom series that I grew up with that are no longer here today. Breath of Fire, Dino Crisis, I'm with the Capcom. Final Fight now, Onimusha, Onimusha needs to make a comeback. It needs to be gritty. It needs to be like dark, super dark. Because you have Devil May Cry where it's like that's already action packed, but it's more silly. It's still dark, but it's more like it's still a little lighthearted. This needs to be full on Edo Japan darkness, like no sense of no hope, no comedy, just gore and hack and slash. Final Fight needs to come back. If Yakuza doesn't do it, Final Fight is going to do it. I mean, sorry, Streets of Rage doesn't do it. Final Fight's going to do it. I was always a Streets of Rage fan more than myself. But if Final Fight wants to use the formula, then by all means, they don't have the patent on it. Just do it. Just do it. But yeah, man. I'm trying to think what else should deserve like a remake or a reboot or something. I think we talked about it a while ago on the Fat Man Robin podcast between me and Daryl. Shout out to Daryl. He's talking about RPGs, and these two come to mind: Legend of Dragoon and Skies of Arcadia. Where's my reboots? What are y'all doing? Why is nobody doing anything with either series? I think it's more egregious for Legend of Dragoon because it's under Sony, and I feel like Sony has so many studios right now on their Infinity Gauntlet that they could just be like, here, do something with this series. Doesn't have to be straight up role playing. Doesn't have to be turn based because I know turn based is only for Dragon Quest now. Dragon Quest and Persona are carrying until their games to a certain degree are carrying the flag for turn-based gaming. But it could be a dark, gritty reboot action RPG. I would give it to From Software. I know it's not a PlayStation Studio, but I would outsource it to them because I'm thinking about the creatures that are in the game, the black monster, things like that. That could look really disgustingly well on PS5. Done by From Software, the people who did Elden Ring, who did Dark Souls, I think it'd just be set. The fact that Skies of Arcadia has not had a sequel when, Sega is still doing RPGs, Valkyria Chronicles can only walk because Skies Arcadia ran. You know, it's not fair that Valkyria Chronicles is what? How many games deep? It's five. There's 5 games. Five and counting the Azure game, whatever. They brought back Shining, a Shining game that did not do that well back in 2018. But Skies of Arcadia can't get not a damn thing done with it. Not even a remastered version for newer consoles. You can't even experience that game without having a Dreamcast and spending so much money, or getting the GameCube version, which is the superior version because it has more content in it. But again, you can't get it unless it's like $175. Like, it's impossible to play. Give us that's when you need to remaster or reboot a game, when it's literally impossible to play it again. And if you do not have money, if you don't have these old consoles, it's impossible to play. Re-release Skies of Arcadia. Give me a newer version. How much does it cost to slap some new paint on the game? You still have the source code? I don't know how games work. Just give me Skies of Arcadia. Man, how hard is it? Seriously, it's such a great game that's not doing anything with it. The most we got from Vice was a freaking cameo in the Valkyria Chronicles, and then he was a racer in, which one was it? Sonic All-Stars Team Racing Transform? Whatever the game was. But you know what? I hold on to hope, because Shenmue was able to get a sequel after 18 years. I think we're way past 18 with Skies of Arcadia, though. But maybe somewhere somebody's thinking about it. Maybe they're working on it. Maybe I feel like if Sega was to shut down the next 10 years, you would hear the multiple pitches that they had for Skies of Arcadia. I definitely know that Valkyria Chronicles probably started out as a Skies of Arcadia sequel or something, because it's so much of that is in its DNA. Just bring it back. Fix your ways and bring it back. I would absolutely love it. What else? I don't know what else I can think of right now that could really deserving a reboot or a remake, but those are a few off the top of my head. So, you know what? We're at 22 minutes. I'll talk for a little bit longer, then we'll close this episode out. But what do you guys think? Am I overthinking things? Am I being a hypocrite because I feel like Resident Evil 4 deserves a remake, but Last of Us doesn't? Is it because of time? I mean, they're 8 years apart. 8 years. And one's already getting a reboot. That's coming out sooner! The Last of Us remake is coming out sooner than Resident Evil 4 remake. Put that to memory. What's some remakes that you guys want to see? I know I missed a lot. I like to see an actual... I like them to remake Grand Theft Auto 1. And Grand Theft Auto 2. Because everybody talks about Grand Theft Auto 3, but y'all never played Grand Theft Auto San Francisco. Or London. Have y'all? A lot of y'all haven't. And those games are hard to play unless you have a PlayStation 1. Unless they release those games on PlayStation Plus Premium. I guess they could do that. Remake Tumba. Why are platformers gone? Except Mario and Sonic. Remake one of them. I love Tumba. Who has the rights to Tumba? Whoopie Camp? Are they still around? They're probably not. You remember Whoopie Camp? Oh, Whoopie! I'm dating myself. Bring back Tumba. Give it to Way Forward. Like I gave Wonder Boy to Way Forward. Or .emu. One of them, .emu. Give me Tumba. With all the tasks and everything. And biting on pigs and learning their language. And throwing them in the pig bags. I need a fun platform like that. And no offense to Mario. And no offense to Sonic. Y'all doing y'all thing. But y'all need to upgrade yourselves too. I need another Mario RPG. And I'm not talking about these Paper Mario games that keep changing the formula on more than Final Fantasy changes. Paper Mario 1, fantastic. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, amazing. One of the best games that came out in 2004. Came out the same day as Nocturne in America. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, sorry. Why did you guys change it with Sticker Star and Color Splash? Why? Why would you do that? Origami King, good, but not what I wanted. I want traditional turn-based Mario. Bug Fables. If you haven't played that, it's a great alternative to Origami King or Paper Mario in general. Link is literally in a fantasy world. I'm just rambling now. He's literally in a fantasy world, but he's never had an RPG game made of him in 37 years. Where's my Link role-playing game? Y'all had to do a hack and slash. Link in an RPG. Make Breath of the Wild 2 a turn-based role-playing game. Turn-based! Do it! Speaking of turn-based games, or I guess role-playing games, we're very close to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 coming out. And I'm very excited. That's July. That's next month. It's supposed to come out September. I'm very excited for Xenoblade. I'm very excited as a Japanese role-playing game fan in general because we're getting a lot of RPGs in the next few months. Live and Live is coming out the 22nd. Then Xenoblade is the next week after that. Soul Hackers 2 comes out. I think that the Legend of Zelda, the Legend of Heroes Trails. What's it called? I don't know. I forget what it's called, but it's the prequel to Trails of Cold Steel is coming out, which I've still not beaten Trails of Cold Steel 3. I'm still on that. I really have to get back into that. Is it down here? I really need to get back into that. Trails of Cold Steel 3 is what I want to finish that saga because that summer of 2019 when I played 1 and 2 back to back was amazing, and I need to go back to that. That was a great series. There's some other JRPGs coming out. I think, you know what? The next time we talk about gaming, I'm going to talk about future releases. Yeah, that would make sense, because about 2 weeks we'll talk about gaming again. I'll talk about 2022 remaining releases that have been announced. There's a lot of good stuff. We're getting some release dates for games coming out soon. I think they just announced that, Marvel Midnight Suns is coming out October 7th, so that means October is superhero month because Gotham Knights comes out the same month. I know they announced a few other things, a lot of indie games that I kind of wanted. So I'm going to look through all the games, and we're going to talk about, on the next gaming episode, we'll talk about 2022 gaming releases. I think that would be good. A good talk. Yeah, so we're going to do that next time. But the next episode, we'll talk about wrestling. We'll go back to wrestling. Will be time for wrestling? I can talk about Impact next time, because the anniversary is this Sunday. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll go with that. All right. That's enough for this episode. Follow me on the socials, Fatman Podcast 90. I'm also on Facebook Marcus Stephens. Check me out on there. We're on all podcast channels. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Deezer, Overcast. I'm just saying things now. Spotify. I'm ruining this whole thing. We're also on YouTube, the FatmanStephens Podcast. FatmanStephens is all word, space, podcast. Again, let me know your thoughts on reboots, remakes. Where do you stand? Are you somewhere in the middle? Do you despise them? Do you love them? Let me hear about it. I'm very interested in seeing people's opinions on reboots and things of that nature. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. I have been Marcus Fatman Stephens, and you're listening to the FatmanStephens Podcast. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye.